There are windmills all over Europe. There are windmills all over the place, and they are losers.
At the 2026 World Economic Forum, globalisation wasn't the only idea under fire. Net zero, once treated as settled policy, was suddenly put on trial. The attack came from the United States, which framed renewables as a strategic gift to China. US Secretary of Commerce mocked wind and solar in a rant that appeared to stun his fellow panellists.
Why are you going to do solar and wind? Why would Europe agree to be net zero in 2030 when they don't make a battery? They don't make a battery. So if they go 2030, they are deciding to be subservient to China, who makes the batteries. Why would you do that? Why would the United States of America, which has oil and natural gas, try to convert to all electricity? China does not have oil and natural gas. Electricity and electric cars make perfect sense to them. That is practical and logical.
The EU, like Australia, has a legally binding net zero target. It's aiming to be the world's first climate-neutral continent by 2050. But the US government argues the policy is economically damaging and plays right into China's hands. Donald Trump went even further than Lutnick in his own comments to the forum.
One thing I've noticed is that the more windmills a country has, the more money that country loses and the worse that country is doing. China makes almost all of the windmills, and yet I haven't been able to find any wind farms in China. Did you ever think of that? It's a good way of looking at it. They're smart. China's very smart. They make them, they sell them for a fortune. They sell them to the stupid people that buy them, but they don't use them themselves. They put up a couple of big wind farms, but they don't use them. They just put them up to show people what they could look like. They don't spin. They don't do anything. They use a thing called coal, mostly. But China goes with the coal. They go with oil and gas. They're starting to look at nuclear a little bit. And they're doing just fine. They make a fortune selling the windmills, though. And I think really that's one that they wouldn't be surprised if it stopped. They are shocked that it continues to go. They're very friendly with me. They're shocked that people continue to buy those damn things. They killed the birds. They ruin your landscapes. Other than that, I think they're fabulous, by the way. Stupid people buy them.
In the end, it was the Chinese vice premier who advocated strongly for renewables, inviting countries to work closely with China on green energy.
It is timely that we listen to each other, learn from each other, and build stronger trust with each other.
China makes the vast majority of renewable technology. It also installs more renewable energy capacity than the rest of the world combined, though it remains by far the biggest emitter of greenhouse gases. The WEF has historically emphasized global cooperation on climate, but doubts have been creeping in. In 2025, BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, once a champion of renewables, warned that the world was running out of reliable power.
The world is going to be short power. Short power. And to power these data companies, you cannot have just this intermittent power like wind and solar. You need dispatchable power because you can't turn off and on these data centers.
The US administration's hostility towards green energy applies to Australia's own target of net zero emissions by 2050. The Albanese government enshrined the target into law in 2022, and it's since become a political flashpoint.
If you get rid of net zero, you are saying climate change is not real.
Supporters of net zero argue renewables will deliver cheaper energy over time once the infrastructure is built, and drive economic growth through new industries. The policy also reduces the risk of more extreme heat, flooding, fires, and droughts brought on by climate change. But detractors say it shoulders consumers with high electricity costs and hobbles the nation's manufacturing and technology sectors, in particular the AI data centre build-out. There was much to concern Australian policymakers at the WEF. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney gave a eulogy for the international rules-based order, warning that it was breaking apart.
We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Over the past 2 decades, a series of crises in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics have laid bare the risks of extreme global integration. But more recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. Tariffs as leverage, financial infrastructure as coercion, supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited.
Then net zero policies were added to the pile, with the US arguing that globalisation has failed and countries will have to put themselves first, while ambitious decarbonisation, once reliant on a coordinated international effort, will only slow them down. Australia now faces tough questions about the possibility of fending for itself in a post-global world, and whether net zero will be a help or a hindrance in that fight.